To our various panelists as well. I have with me Sabah Naqvi, senior journalist in the studio, but joining me from their locations, Raghav Chadha, the spokesperson of the Aam Aadmi Party, Sudhanshu Trivedi, spokesperson of the BJP. We also have Advaita Kala, who is an author, and Rupen Doshi, who is the CEO of Future Tech and belongs to the same community of Jains that the monk Tarun Sagar also comes from. Raghav Chadha, a reaction to that, but before I come to you, Sabah, let me go across to Rupen Doshi to comment on not just the presence of a religious figure in the assembly from your community, but also the kind of comments that he has made. Mr. Doshi, your views?
See, there is no harm in a religious leader representing himself or his views in a political assembly. I think there's nothing wrong with that. It's kind of being sensationalized a bit because of his lack of dress. You know, in us Digambar Jains, somebody as pure and somebody who's renounced the world as him, not wearing any clothes is pretty normal. But I think in the public eye in India, it kind of got sensationalized, and that's why all this attention. And that's why everybody is actually, you know, hearing and tearing apart every word that he has said. I think physical presence of him over there is more like a spiritual leader rather than a religious leader. You know, he's talking about thought process and how spiritualism should be a part of politics. And let me tell you, that's really, really required. You know, that I'm not talking about religion per se, but spiritualism, we really need to think of the higher plane. Our politicians especially need to think of that, and I think that's the reason why he was invited. You know, as a monk, he's not a saint, by the way, he's a monk. So as a monk, in the religious fora, in the religious arena, he will not talk what he spoke in the assembly. Okay, he'll talk about the Atma, the attainment of the Atma, right. Self. He'll only talk about you and yourself. Right. He will not talk the worldly things that he talked about in the assembly. Right. So as far as his views on the, as far as my views on what he spoke, look, I think that he was kind of talking to not Jains, hardcore Jains like me, who already understand a little bit about the religion, but he was talking to the general mass. So therefore he gave examples of things that people understand, people will pay attention to, and I think it's a pretty good way of getting people's attention by talking about topical subjects. Okay, all right. So even this stuff about you know, female feticide, I think he was trying to highlight a particular problem.
I think the more problematic comments are about dharam
to the Grand Priest.
Yeah.
So you know, there are. Let me finish.
Yeah, I'll come back to you.
Let me finish, sir. Yeah. It is fine if he wants to say that. People in search of dharma. Let me finish, sir. Let me finish, sir. So if he's fine if he wants to say that to his
here.
Not at all, Sudhanshu.
Sudhanshu, when did you start comparing India and Saudi Arabia?
Mr. Doshi, Mr. Doshi and Raghav Chadha and Advaita Kala, I want to bring you in as well, but Mr. Doshi and Raghav, very quick responses to what he's saying. Mr. Doshi?
No, I don't think, I think he's just simplifying the whole thing. You know, by saying that you were not there at that time and that why you over here is ridiculous. Of course we were there at that time, and we completely opposed you know, the religion trying to impose fatwas and, you know, impose those restrictions on women. We are going to be there, Mr. Trivedi, every time something is going to oppress women and oppress the common man in particular. So, you know, when you distort religion and you mix up the word religion and dharma, I think it's very confusing. We are not talking about religion, we are talking about spiritualism. So if there is less and less of religion in politics and there's more and more of spiritualism, you know, every common man, every politician will be a better man and will have better politics and a better party.
His definition of dharma is spirituality. Mr. Doshi's already made that clear. Raghav Chadha, let's...
but when Jain Muni is giving dharma, then it is objectionable.
So Sudhanshu,
when the Assembly of Kerala on 16th of
Mr. Trivedi, all right, Mr.
Trivedi passes a resolution.
Mr. Sudhanshu, are you advocating more? Do you think more dharmic leaders should be speaking?
Mr. Trivedi, all right, Sudhanshu Trivedi,
you are one of the oldest TV channel of India. You just give me one example.
Nobody's debating it.
One moment, sir. Let's not move away from the debate in question. Rupen Doshi, come in, and Sabha has a question for you as well, Mr. Trivedi. But Mr. Doshi, go ahead and make your point.
I don't think you should actually split it up between religion and dharma. I think to the common man, dharma means religion is a very dangerous trend to keep inviting religious leaders to assemblies and to parliament. I think the Aam Aadmi Party is more responsible for it since they invited him. There's no point in blaming the monk, but you are actually opening up a Pandora's box. You know, the political parties will actually use religious leaders to broadcast their message and to actually mislead the masses. So you are actually, the constitution says that they have to be separate. Now you're actually bringing them together. You are getting into deep trouble and you're taking the nation backwards. Here we are trying to fight and say that religion is separate. You practice your religion, it's a very personal thing, I'll practice mine. And you guys are actually bringing it all together. So don't mix it up. It's going to be a heady mix which will blow up in our face and again push the country back. We're moving forwards economically. Religion and religion and politics is a very heady mix that's going to blow up in our face and take us back.
All right, before you respond, Raghav,
Sudhanshu was there.
Yeah,
I
it's
have
the
a
political involvement of people which intimidates us.
Yeah, and I completely agree with this gentleman. Thank you, sir. I think you're making a lot of sense.
All right, your question to Sudhanshu. Trivedi.
Sudhanshu
Trivedi, let's come.
State Assembly.
Mr. Trivedi.
This is the mixture of politics and we are strongly against it.
Mr. Trivedi, all right.
As per the Catholic traditions.
Mr. Trivedi.
And we are strongly against it.
Mr. Trivedi.
Will you call a Muslim religious leader? Will you call a Muslim spiritual leader?
Mr. Trivedi, you are saying that dharma should be what?
Elements of dharma which can have a propagation in the society.
I think
it is written
on the same bush all the time. There are no answers.
Shauch Indri Nigra.
So
He Vidya Satyam Akrodho Dashkam Dharma Lakshanam. There is no religious aspect. Self-restraint, benevolence,
this is just taking
studying,
complicating the issues.
knowledge acquiring. These are the elements of dharma.
Sudhanshu, you should give a lecture on a lighter note. आप ही lecture दे दीजिए सुधांशु जी. अगली बार आप जैन मंक को नहीं बुलाइए, आप ही एक धर्म पे lecture दीजिए.
Mr. Doshi. Yeah.
Will you call? I want to ask Sudhanshu if he will call a religious leader who is a Muslim to Parliament.
Dictionary से scientific terms का अर्थ
निकालने की
कोशिश
one at a time, please. One at a time. Gentlemen, one at a time. Mr. Doshi, go ahead.
Sudhanshu, will you call a Muslim spiritual Maulvi to Parliament to talk about dharma? Will you call a Christian? Will you call a Sikh? Will you, as you called a Jain, will you do that? Are you going to do that? That is actually distinguishing between religion and dharma. This lecture on dharma and religion is going to cut no ice because the common man actually thinks it's the same thing. When you say dharma, it means religion for the common man. So don't take this to a higher plane and talk about spiritualism where for
common man,
you call a Jain monk, it's about Jainism. He represents the Jain community. He was not called because he's a great preacher. He was called because he's a Jain monk. So he represents the Jain community. He may wear different hats at different times, but at this time he was this. So you are actually...
Okay, let me bring Advaita Kala back into this. All right, Mr. Doshi, got your point. To live in the country, I mean, what about, as Mr. Doshi points out, does dharma then mean calling a Sikh priest, calling a Muslim priest, calling a Catholic priest as well? Let Advaita answer. I suggest you better educate us there.
If you do not have answer, then why you are asking the question?
As a practicing Jain, I would like to come in here and interpret. I think I can interpret this better than all of you.
Yeah.
I think it was an example which the monk gave. Okay, I don't think it was a very good example because actually the common man will relate it to normal patni and pati, okay, husband and wife. In the Jain sense, there's a very deeper meaning. There's no time to debate that right now. But on an absolute basis, when you're talking to a lay audience, you shouldn't be giving these examples because it actually gives the wrong picture and it triggers off a wrong trend. And it triggers off a defense like this with saying that understand the meaning of pati and patni. I think what's really important is, and Jainism believes that each and every human being is a soul. Each and every living thing in this on this planet, including trees and leaves, is a soul and has equal right. So according to the religion, pati and patni, husband and wife, women are all the same. And Jainism gives a great and a lot of importance. As a practicing Jain and the son of a working mother, I can tell you that if you actually follow the tenets of my religion or any religion, you will not treat women, you will not talk about women the way the country is doing, the way so many people are doing, the way
all right, Sudhanshu Trivedi, last minute, go ahead, Sudhanshu Trivedi. We only have 60 seconds for you.
Whatever Mr. Doshi has said, I totally agree. The problem is, हम में से किसी ने ना जैन धर्म पढ़ा, ना जैन दर्शन पढ़ा, ना जैन का स्यादवाद पढ़ा, ना अनुवृत्त सिद्धांत पढ़ा, और व्याख्या करने में आगे
नहीं पढ़ा होगा, हमने पढ़ा।
और मैं बता दूं, पति का अर्थ होता है स्वामी और पत्नी का अर्थ होता है स्वामिनी। At one point of time, the husband has to be under the discipline of wife. Another point of time, wife has to be under the discipline of wife. At one point of time, जनता सरकार को नियंत्रित करती है और कभी सरकार जनता को नियंत्रित करती है.
All right, actually, समस्या ये है कि just for that, I agree with Sabha. I think you should be conducting these lectures better than anybody else. Unfortunately, that's all we have time for on this debate. So thank you all very much for being on it. But before we leave, let's also go across to the controversial culture minister. He spoke to my colleague Siddharth. News as we end the show tonight. Thanks for watching. The buck stops here.